Hello, everyone. Welcome to eSight Vision Central, Dining with eSight Go, today on July 25th, 2025. Thank you, everyone, for joining the meeting today. Looking forward to discussing Dining with eSight Go. So today on our agenda, we're going to start off with some introduction, housekeeping, and then we're going to talk about the eSight Go MSRP, just do a discussion of candidates for eSight Go, and then get into our subject matter for today's Vision Central event, Dining with eSight Go. So for an introduction, so this is live, so things might happen. We might have some technical glitches and so forth, but just want to let everyone know that this is a live event. To raise your hand at the end of the meeting, you can press Control Shift and K on a PC or Command Shift and K on a Mac. This session should only take about 30 to 45 minutes. And just a note, to access old Vision Central webinar recordings, you can go to our eSight YouTube channel, youtube.com/eSight. So the eSight Go MSRP, the MSRP for the eSight Go is as follows. In the US is $4,950, and in Canada it's selling for $6,600. See, made a mistake right there. $6,600. So candidates for eSight Go. So this is just general guidelines for those that would be candidates for eSight Go. As eSight coaches, we are not good at screening people or giving advice on whether eSight would work for someone. But if you're new to learning about eSight, here's just some general guidelines of how eSight may help someone with different visual conditions. So eSight's designed to help people with an acuity of 20/80 to 2600, and eSight Go is originally designed to assist people with central vision loss. For eSight to work well to assist someone, some functional peripheral vision is required. eSight Go can assist a variety of visual conditions, but conditions that affect peripheral vision, such as glaucoma and retinitis pigmentosa, can be a bit more challenging to assist. So now we're going to get into a subject today of dining with eSight Go. And for the discussion, we're going to have talking about using eSight while looking at drive-through menus with Leah. So, Leah, you can take it away with your topic.
All right, thank you, Tyler. So first, we'll start off with eSight does not condone driving using the device, so don't do that. But as you are a passenger in a vehicle, if you stop at a fast food restaurant that has a drive-through and a board, the eSight actually works really well with that. You can either be in the front passenger seat, or you can even be behind the driver in the back seat behind the driver if you wish to, and you just need to pull far enough forward to where the pole that's holding the speaker doesn't really block your view, because that was a thing that was seen in my experiments with this. You can have your tilt at a 0, which is angled upward, or at a -2, which is a general straight ahead for most people. And then you would just zoom in, and it worked really well with the restaurants that I looked at because of how the menu boards are divided up. You could just go down the line. A lot of them have their combos numbered and in certain spots or whatnot, so it was very easy to just sort of go down the line, read it, and then move over to the next, go down the line, read it, and then move over. I did sort of cheat because we already knew what I wanted at the particular fast food joint that we went to, and so we didn't have to truly pause for a really long time to look. But I did turn on the eSight and I did look while my driver was ordering our food and everything, and I could clearly see stuff. I did have a little bit of a problem seeing the smaller words, like there were calorie counts underneath the combos and stuff like that. But if you're worried about something like that, you can get that information off of the restaurant's website. I do recommend that if it's not a spur of the moment trip, like you're on a road trip and you, hey, let's go to wherever, if it's not something like that, I would almost say, just to help in the matter, look at the menu online. A lot of restaurants have menus already online. Just type in the restaurant and you can bring up the menu. Even ones like McDonald's, Wendy's, that kind of thing, you can see what they have before you get there. And you can use your eSight for that as well on your phone or a tablet or anything to that effect. But if it's, like I said, a spur of the moment trip, using the eSight, completely doable with the Zoom and that sort of thing. It was a really good experience.
All right, excellent.
That's,
Thank you, Leah.
yeah, pretty much it.
Thank you. That's great. And
Yep.
next, we're going to talk about over-the-counter menus with Richard.
Thanks, Tyler. So, let's say that you're just out and you're going somewhere, and maybe you're not familiar with where you're going. You're like, oh, look, there's an alligator on the roof and some goofy stuff on the walls. Let's check this place out. Um, the way that I like to use eSight in a situation like that, where your menu is behind the counter, let's say like a diner, even if you're going into a fast food place, but the kind that have the menus, delis, another one, pizza joint, anywhere like that, you're actually going to be using two skill sets. You're going to be using your distance vision skill set and your reading vision skill set. So distance, you're pretty familiar with that, being eSight users, where you're going to zoom in. It's going to be different for everybody for what the right number is. So you just want to zoom in until you can begin to make out the words on the menu. Now, the next thing you want to do is keep in mind, if you're having any trouble with movement or going line to line, that kind of a thing, um, remember that you can press and hold, do a long press on that menu button, either on the right arm or on the remote, and that will freeze. So it's like taking a picture without saving it. So while it's frozen, if you don't want to be looking up or, what have you, you'll have it right here in your eSight. So then you can zoom in, you can pan, move your head, and you can even step to the side of the line if you're trying to figure out what you want, that kind of thing. It can come in really, really handy, but that's one of those reading techniques that you're kind of going to try to combine with your normal distance techniques. Another thing that you could run into is, lighting is really important. And there's not much you can do to control that, in a restaurant like that. There's only so much that you can do. But there are some things that you can try that may help in different situations where things are looking a little wonky. So let's say that you're looking at a menu, and for whatever reason it's light, and you can tell the words are there, but and they're dark, but it's fuzzy, it's looking a little weird. That's the situation where let's go into our contrast menu. While we are looking at this menu, let's add this contrast. Let's see if that will help clear up the specific type. Now, the same thing can go for like those places where there is a chalkboard with the specials, the lunch specials or whatever, or even something where they make it look like a chalkboard. Once again, do your zoom, do your freeze frame if you need to, but also add that contrast to make it stand out. And remember, on the go, your contrast works best when you are looking at an object like a menu like that. So those things will all really work to your benefit. The last thing I guess I would just touch on, I know some people out there are have their tilt basically set to what your normal line of sight would be, which is usually around a -1 or a -2. If you are one of them people, don't forget that you actually could go up to 0, and that would give you a little bit extra going up, because our tilt goes from 0 to -4. So if you naturally have it setting at a -1 or -2, you can go up and then try to get more in line with those menus that are at a elevated level. So yeah, that's
Excellent. Thank you, Richard. No, great. Very good. And next, Cosmos is going to talk about the using eSight Go with a sit-down menu.
And these can be a little bit more challenging based off of the ambient lighting and then the material that the menu is made out of. The laminated style menus can be glossy and those can be very reflective. So getting the menu at the proper angle is important. And if it's a really romantic, low light environment, the eSight Go works really well in lower light environments. It will appear grainy, but you should be able to read the menu. But there is a freeze frame option, which if I were in a environment that wasn't working well, I would do a long press of the menu button, and that would then freeze it. So I could take it out into the lobby, do a freeze frame of the menu, and then go back to my table. And at my leisure, that image will now be stuck on your eSight screens, and you can zoom in and then use your head to pan around that frozen image, almost like virtual reality. And so that's kind of like the uh, last thing to try if in the restaurant you can't do it. Um, Contrast is something to play around with depending on the font colors of the menu. If they are lighter, you can turn contrast up. It makes the darks darker and the lights lighter. Another thing to try would be color filter. And I find the grayscale color filter works the best for me. It's like a black and white TV. And anytime there's text on a colorful background or pictures, like a magazine or a menu, I find that grayscale makes those words pop. And so that's something to try. So you got lots of different options to try and overcome the challenging environment and reading material. When you've got just plain old paper, there's no reflectiveness, then reading's a breeze. But when you introduce shadows, like if you've got a really thick book and the spine of the book, when the pages kind of curve into the spine, that those inner words can be tough because they're in the shadows. And so shadows and glare can definitely give it trouble. And so just trying to find the right angle is key. And with this eSight Go, you've got image stabilization. First time one of our devices have had that. With the older ones, head movement would make the image jiggle. With this one, that's not a thing. They've really done a remarkable job with this image stabilization. But if you were holding the menu and finding it was jiggling too much, sometimes head movement plus hand movement can be a bit much. Freeze frame's also a good technique for that, but I have not encountered that personally with my device because of that image stabilization. And that's about it. Tyler, anything else to
No,
add?
no, I think that's good, and I think that that's good kind of comment too. Just if you're in a restaurant, right, and say it is like a candlelight dinner and stuff, just being aware of what's on the table, right? You don't want to actually bump the menu and so forth on things. I will admit, in my lifetime, I have bumped the menu against my glass of water and knocked that over accidentally, due to not realizing it's there. So that's going to be a little bit into my hand-eye coordination, but it is a good point to be
And
aware of the spatial orientation of the menu
right.
versus where other things are on the table.
And you want to, just like with walking, you want to navigate with your naked eyes the way you normally would, because your hand eye, right now I'm looking at my camera through my eSight and I'm at times 16. My hand-eye coordination is not perfect. And so if I wanted to reach over and grab my coffee, I would not want to look with my eSight at times 16 to try and get it because my field of view is going to be little. And so I want to see, okay, which one is my coffee? Okay, that one, grab it. Last night I was at the pub with a friend, not with my eSight. And I said, hey, where's the salt? And he said, it's behind the paper of the French fry bucket. And so I reached over and I put my finger in his drink. trying to find the salt shaker. So had I had my eSight, I probably could have spotted where the little salt shaker was and not put my finger in his drink. So
Good. All right. Thank you, Cosmo. And that's going to talk about restaurant orientation with Jeanette.
Well, that was a happy note. Thank you, Cosmo, for that. That gave me a little smile. So I would say that, it depends that the orientation of the restaurant really is really looking around, having the ability to look around and see what's around you while you eat. Maybe before you eat, maybe during your eating, maybe after you eat, depending on what it is you want to do. The lighting, as everybody else has touched on, the lighting and the environment can really change the way that you use your eSight. I am going to focus probably on the kind of restaurant that may be quite challenging for some people, where you may have a buffet type, self-service type restaurant. Now here in Florida, before lockdown, we used to have a place called Sweet Tomatoes that I used to go to a lot. But they do have other restaurants with that kind of layout, when you have a salad bar and then you may have a hot food bar, and you may have plates to the side and cutlery to the side and labels on the glass, cases that you have to be able to read, and you have to be able to look and see the tongs inside of the salad, various salad items, in order to pick the salad items up and put them onto your plate. And you may have other restaurants like Starbucks, like a smaller place, and but the overall, I find the overall techniques that's really necessary is to be able to combine the use of your eSight with your natural vision. Now, when I'm sitting at my computer, I will tell you that I personally, and I'm sure that many of you share this, maybe you tie your lanyards fairly tightly on your head to make sure that the weight of the eSight is really evenly distributed. But what that can also do is pull the eSight really, really close to your eyes, and therefore you don't necessarily have as much flexibility to look down underneath the eSight. Whereas when you're out at a restaurant, or a salad bar, or wherever you may be, you may want to loosen that just a little so that you have more access to looking down and sort of forward underneath your eSight. The reason this is really important is because it gives you a general picture of what's around, depending on the type of vision that you have. Having access to that natural vision will give you the access to the various shapes and colors and different things that you might see, that you may want to then look through your eSight and zoom in on. So you might see a sign far away at the back of the restaurant, and you may not know what it is, and then looking through your eSight and zooming up on that sign will give you an idea. Maybe it's the bathrooms, for example, or maybe you can see roughly where the register is, for example, but you want to zoom in on there. Maybe you can see where the salad bar and where the hot bar is, but maybe again you can see that with the natural vision that you have, but you want to use the enhanced vision to really zoom up on those things that you're seeing, and actually read what they are, or look and see more closely as you zoom in what those things are. And your zoom will obviously not only make the images larger, but it will bring them closer to your view. So it really looks like they're coming closer to your eyes as they get larger. So those are the things that I find are really crucial for looking around at a restaurant. So that the combination of the natural vision that you have combined with the enhanced vision of the eSight device. And again, even when you're sitting at a table, you might, for example, look towards, like the other day I was at Starbucks and I was looking towards the back of the store, and I saw two brown doors, and they were looking wooden, and I could see the black signs with the little white figures on them, but I couldn't quite see which one was which. Obviously they were the bathrooms, so I couldn't quite see which one was which from where I was. And I zoomed in and I was able to see much more clearly. And again, using some of the techniques that Richard has been through as well. So looking at those menus above, if you're trying to find those, like you go to a place like Panera or something like that, and you're orienting yourself generally, you want to see where the registers are, you want to see where the tables are, you want to see what are the booths and what are the open tables, you want to see where the menus are, you want to see where the drinks are. They're all scattered all over the place. And if you go to places like that, it can be really confusing. Even people, fully sighted people say, well, where is the water? I can't find the water. Where you get the water, I see the coffees and the teas, and now you've got to find the cold drinks, and now you've got to find the cutlery. So everything can be quite dotted around. And so it's really, really useful to have the combined view of the enhanced vision with the natural vision. So the natural vision, to summarize, will kind of identify the general picture of what's around you, and the enhanced view of the eSight will enable you to view and zoom up on those items that you can see in general that you want to see in detail.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeanette. That's great. And next, I'm going to talk about eating with eSight Go with hand-eye coordination. So some people with using the eSight Go have expressed over the years of using the eSight technology of trying to see the food on their plate, or they have trouble, say, distinguishing, say, where the meat is on their plate versus the mashed potatoes and so forth due to their vision loss. And so I was just going to have a brief little discussion on hand-eye coordination with the eSight Go. One of the things I would recommend when you're first using the eSight, I say if you're looking at the table that you're sitting at, you'd want to use less zoom, and you'd want to observe what's on the table. So trying to see if coffee is placed in front of you or a drink and so forth, getting an idea of where the spatial things are on the table, and so you have an idea of, okay, over to your left is maybe where a drink is, or maybe perhaps you have a certain drink menu over on one side and so forth, and trying to find yourself there, and then adding magnification and zooming in and seeing things in more detail. Now, one of the things with the eSight Go is we do have the digital tilt. So when you are looking down at a table, you don't have to bend your head down as much. You can use that digital tilt, say to a -3 or -4, to kind of orientate the glasses downward more at an angle to see what you're looking at. Now, when you are eating with the eSight, you can use, depending on your vision, use your peripheral vision underneath, and you can go by larger indicators such as color, or you can say try to where your hand placement is and where your plate placement is with what you're trying to do, and then utilize the video image in the eSight to add magnification to see detail. So, for example, if you say had a plate in front of you that had say a meat like a steak and potatoes and rice, I have heard from patients over the years they maybe would have trouble distinguishing the rice and the potatoes because they may be a similar color of kind of a white, yellow color. So, what you'd want to do is add magnification, and then use that contrast to make any texture, make any shadowing apparent on that area of the plate. So you'd want to zoom in, add some contrast, and hopefully, with that contrast, have the ability to distinguish, okay, there's little mounds, there's tiny things like they're stacked together. That's probably the rice versus they're looking at the potatoes. Now, when you are looking down at your plate, you're looking down at the table, as I said, utilizing the tilt is helpful, so you're not bending your neck down as low. But then the trick is, if you're utilizing the tilt, you're seeing it at an angle, and where your hand placement is in kind of natural space versus how you see it on the camera may be slightly different. It may feel slightly askew. So you want to experiment with that at home. So if you're experimenting with eating with the eSight Go, take the time to say, practice at home, and practice with, say, something, if you're looking at a plate with, say, maybe a piece of toast, right, and you're buttering a piece of toast. You don't want to, say, practice with like a bowl of soup and you're trying to pick up the soup on the spoon and place the soup on the spoon and bring the spoon to your mouth, and you may spill the soup. Like, try to practice with something that's just less messy is one thing I would advise. So when you're practicing and so forth, getting used to saying, okay, you might like using the tilt, and then you can practice the spatial awareness of using that tilt of where the hands are in your view. Now, when you're eating and then you're looking through the camera, one thing I have found, let's say for example for the toast, you may want to butter your toast, and you have the butter and you have your the knife and stuff. So you're going to use the left magnification to have like a general view of where things are placed on the table. So say if you had a plate directly in front of you, and then up in front of the plate or north to that plate is where the butter dish is, and being able to know, okay, that's where the butter dish is, and to the right of that butter dish is going to be your drink. So you know when you're reaching forward, you want to reach over your plate toward the butter dish with the knife, and then zoom in on that butter dish as you're placing the knife onto that slab of butter to get a piece, and then looking back at your toast, and then bring your knife towards the toast, and then to butter it. Very, very kind of similar technique to if you're writing with the eSight, that kind of hand-eye coordination thing, and it does just take practice. One of the things I'd recommend as well is when you're eating with the eSight is just if you are say eating something that can be a bit more challenging to get, like say in peas for example, prone to rolling and stuff and so forth, utilizing maybe another utensil like a knife or so forth, just helping you guide that onto a fork and just kind of say keep it from say rolling off the plate and so forth. That's the one thing when I've experimented to try to assist patients over the years, that sometimes just getting to the lip of a plate or the edge of a plate, and things can kind of go over, and you kind of feel so conscious about making a mess and so forth. And with practice, that does go away. I would recommend if you're practicing at home, and then if you're going out and you're going to use your eSight to help you eat, you kind of feel more confident and more comfortable as you do that. But the zoom, contrast, and tilt really are helpful. Um, the freeze, I find, you can kind of pause that image, and if you're having difficulty telling what's on the table due to visual acuity, you can say have less zoom, freeze the image, and then zoom in to pan around. But the challenge is to remember that you have paused that image and that you've frozen that image. I have had one time a gentleman I heard of where he froze the image and he paused it, and then he went to reach for a glass of water and forgot that he would pause and reach too far. And so just sometimes mistakes can happen. So just be aware that if you're utilizing the freeze feature, that it is actually frozen on the screen. Um, and when you're also reaching for items and so forth, say a knife or a fork and so forth, experiment with that in the sense when you're looking through the camera and how that feels versus if you're looking with your natural vision. And depending on how you are seeing with your visual acuity, you may be either switch between your natural peripheral vision and looking through the video, or you might prefer one over the other. So it just depends on you as a user. I know for myself, when I practice with say eating with the eSight, and I've done it before, especially things that are quite small and so forth. I've used my peripheral vision, and I have used my eSight enhanced vision to see how that is, and I go back and forth. But I know that sometimes with some of the acuity, they might not have that benefit with their peripheral vision, so they want to just look through the camera and practice the reaching and so forth for that. So that's the discussion of eating with eSight Go with hand-eye coordination. So just something to try and practice, and I definitely encourage people that are interested in that to give it a shot. All right. So if anyone had any questions about dining with eSight Go, feel free to raise your hand with the commands or the buttons on the keyboard, and I have Devesh here to assist with anyone that may have any questions. Devesh, do you know if anyone with their hands raised or any questions?
I don't see any hands up.
So what was that, Devesh?
Yeah, so Jeffrey, please go ahead and unmute your mic. Jeffrey, I see your hands up.
Do we need to unmute his mic or can he unmute it?
I already did that.
There we are. I think you're coming through, Jeffrey. No.
Okay, well, Jeffrey, no worries with the technical difficulties. You can always phone in and speak with your coach. Ask one of us, and we can assist you with any question that you have. No worries there. Some technical stuff does happen, but that's a-okay. So while we wrap up this Vision Central here on Dining with eSight Go, and thank you everyone for joining today on July 25th, and looking forward to everyone seeing everyone next month in August, and hope everyone enjoyed the eSight webinar. Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Hi,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.